The moment I put on the crown, the crowd cheered, but I felt lonelier than ever. Chapter 48 The Skirmishers Maximus POV. The skirmishers had arrived, and though I was still devastated by Audeline's rejection, I managed to throw myself into rigorous training during the preparation period. I had to admit, I was in the best shape of my life, physically sharper, mentally tougher, and more determined than ever. Leaving Chris in charge of the pack, I set off with Dimitri and elite warriors to represent us. The stakes were high, with numerous alphas competing for the crown and the title of king of all werewolves. Each of them had their strengths, their own reasons to believe they were destined for the throne. I knew the competition would be fierce, but I was confident. Both Drive AKO and I had trained relentlessly, and we had something the others lacked: purpose. The skirmishes were divided into 3 grueling rounds. The first round was intellectual, testing our knowledge of the kingdom, its history, politics, finances, and the intricacies of pack dynamics. Many faltered, unprepared for the depth and complexity of the questions. But not me. My grandfather had been a renowned scholar, penning the most significant books on werewolf history. HED grilled me on our lineage, our legacy, and our responsibility since I could walk. Passing this round was almost effortless. The second round demanded skill contests of agility and strength, from foot races across treacherous terrain to precision-based challenges. I excelled in every event. My months of training paid off as I claimed victory after victory, leaving no doubt about my physical capabilities. But the third and final round was the true test of the battles. It was down to 4 contenders: Ivan, alpha of the largest pack in Russia and one of my closest friends; Hodji, one, a Chinese alpha whose mastery of martial arts was second to none; Nicholas, the ruthless and cunning alpha of the Winterwoods pack; and me. The battles were organized in pairs. Ivan would face Nicholas, while I was matched against the Chinese alpha. The winners of these matches would face off in the ultimate fight for the crown. The rules dictated that we fight in our human forms. Shifting into wolf form was forbidden, as it would tilt the balance unfairly in favor of some contestants. While I would have preferred to fight as Drive AKO, my wolf strength was unparalleled. I respected the rules. I had trained my human body tirelessly for this moment, and I was ready. My battle with the Chinese alpha was nothing short of brutal. His speed and precision were unlike anything I had ever encountered. Every strike I launched was countered, every move I made anticipated. His martial arts skills were extraordinary, and I quickly found myself on the defensive. Frustration began to creep in. Blow after blow landed, sapping my strength and resolve. Was this how it would end? Would I fall here, before I even had the chance to claim the throne? Draco's voice growled in my mind, filled with impatience and determination. Let me take control. Let me show him what we're capable of. I hesitated. This was my battle, our future. But as round after round ended in stalemates, I realized I had no choice. I relinquished control to Drive AKO, and what happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. I barely remember the details. Drive AKO moved with a fluidity and ferocity that left even the spectators in awe. His strikes were faster, more precise, more calculated than anything I could have mustered on my own. The Chinese alpha fought valiantly, but it was clear he had met his match. Within 40 minutes, Drive AKO delivered the decisive blow, and the Chinese alpha fell to the ground. The crowd roared its approval, but all I could think was this: I should have trusted Drive AKO sooner. He was born for this, destined to be king. Meanwhile, Nicholas had defeated Ivan in his match, and now it was down to the 2 of us. The final battle. We entered the circular arena, the tension palpable in the air. Nicholas and I faced each other, both of us radiating power and determination. The gong sounded, and the fight began. We circled each other cautiously, each looking for an opening. The rules were clear: stepping outside the circle meant instant defeat. Nicholas was the first to strike, his attacks swift and relentless, but I had anticipated his aggression. parrying his blows and countering with my own. The battle was fierce, each of us pushing our limits. It was clear to everyone watching that I was gaining the upper hand. Nicholas fought hard, but my training and Draco's influence gave me the edge. That's when it happened. I felt a sharp pinch on my right ankle, subtle but undeniable. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I thought it was a stray pebble or an accidental scrape, but moments later, a wave of dizziness washed over me, and my vision blurred. What was happening to me? My movement slowed. My strength faltered. Nicholas noticed immediately, a sinister grin spreading across his face. I struggled to steady myself, but my body wouldn't obey. Poison. The realization hit me like a blow to the chest. Someone had sabotaged me, and I was now at their mercy. The crowd's cheers blurred into a distant roar as I fought to remain upright. Nicholas closed in, sensing his advantage. My mind raced, but my body betrayed me. I stumbled, struggling to stay within the circle. Drive AKO howled furiously in my mind, his rage echoing through every fiber of my being. I couldn't lose. Not like this. But as darkness began to creep into the edges of my vision, I knew I was running out of time. You've been poisoned. Likely arsenic. Drive AKO growled in my head, confirming the creeping suspicion gnawing at me. Damn it. That bastard. He knew he couldn't beat me fairly, so he resorted to this. I cursed inwardly. I can purge it from your system, but I need time. Your body has antibodies from the training your father put you through. This isn't the first time you faced arsenic. You just have to hold on. Understood. Drive AKO. Do what you need to do, I replied through gritted teeth. When I was a boy, my father had poisoned me with small doses of arsenic periodically to build my immunity, a barbaric but effective method to prepare me for moments like this. It was a dark and twisted gift, but now, it was the only thing keeping me from collapsing entirely. Dizziness threatened to overtake me. My knees buckled, and I hit the ground hard. The crowd erupted in jeers and boos, their earlier support vanishing like smoke in the wind. Meanwhile, Nicholas stood tall, a smug grin plastered on his face as he basked in that adoration. My head was spinning, my breath shallow, but Draco's voice was there, steady and grounding. Relax. I've got this. Just hold on a little longer, he reassured me. The referee began counting, his voice booming over the noise of the crowd. Turn 9. Nicholas leaned over me, his sneer widening as he mocked. The big, bad Maximus. Reduced to nothing. How pitiful. I clenched my fists, fury bubbling under my skin as his next words slithered into my ears. I'll tell you what. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. His voice oozing malice. When I'm crowned king, your mate will make a fine addition to my collection. Adelina will warm my bed every night, and you'll make sure to satisfy her in ways you never could. The words ignited something primal in me. My vision turned red as rage surged through my veins. Adelina is mine, I roared internally, the claim echoing in my very soul. 7-6. The referee's count dragged on, each number a knife slicing into my resolve. Nicholas stepped back, grinning viciously, savoring my apparent defeat. Soon, she'll forget all about you. I'll make sure of it. That was it. With a growl that tore from my throat like thunder, I forced myself up, every muscle screaming in protest. The dizziness fought to pull me back down, but I refused to yield. My legs trembled, but I stood. The crowd's reaction was deafening. A roar of renewed shouts for my name reverberated through the arena. Their faith reignited. Nicholas's grin faltered, his smug confidence replaced with a flicker of doubt. Before I could regain my footing fully, Nicholas launched himself at me, a whirlwind of punches and kicks. His attacks were relentless, desperate to finish me off before I could recover. Each blow sent shockwaves through my already battered body. But I focused on defense. I raised my arms, guarding my head against the barrage. My breath came in ragged gasps as I absorbed hit after hit, each one testing my endurance. My thoughts turned to Adelina, her smile, her strength, her defiance. The image of Nicholas laying a single hand on her was all the motivation I needed. Minutes passed as Nicholas hammered me relentlessly, his blows raining down like a relentless storm. All I could do was dodge, barely keeping up as my body screamed for rest. My vision blurred at the edges, my breathing grew ragged, and my legs felt like they were made of lead. My stamina was draining fast. I needed to act, and I needed to act now. Through the chaos of his attacks, I focused on one thing, his movements. They followed a pattern, a rhythm I could almost hear. 3 quick, punishing strikes, followed by a sharp intake of breath, and then 2 more powerful hits. That pause, that fleeting moment of vulnerability was my window. I just had to time it perfectly and throw him off balance. I find head lift, making him follow me, his eyes locked on what he thought was my next move. He bit the bait. That's when I struck a fierce right, hooked to his unprotected head. The sound of the impact echoed through the air, and Nicholas staggered back, stunned. This was my moment. I didn't let up. Blow after blow, I attacked with everything I had, each punch fueled by adrenaline and desperation. My strikes came fast, merciless, leaving him little time to recover or regroup. Minutes felt like hours as I pushed myself beyond my limits, my mind blank except for the singular goal of bringing him down. With one last devastating uppercut, Nicholas crumpled to the ground. His body was battered, covered in bruises and cuts. I wasn't in much better shape. I was bleeding, my muscles screaming in agony, but I didn't care. I had done it. The referee began the count. 10-9. Nicholas didn't move. He lay there, his body motionless. The referee reached the final number, paused dramatically, then raised his arm toward me. Maximus Drive AKO is the winner, he shouted with all his might. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices a deafening roar that echoed through the arena. Maximus, Maximus, they chanted, the sound washing over me like a wave of triumph. But inside, Draco's voice growled, cutting through the celebration. They should be chanting my name, not yours. You don't deserve this win. All you've done for months is drink. Well, I carried your sorry ass. But fine, Maximus. I ignored his scorn, too overwhelmed by the crowd's energy. When the arena quieted, the former king stepped forward, his voice loud and commanding. My loyal people, I present to you our new king. All bow to Maximus Drive AKO, the rightful ruler of all werewolves. I welcome you, Maximus, and wish you strength and prosperity during your reign. Long live the king. The crowd cheered in unison, repeating the words like a mantra. I waved at them, my chest swelling with pride, though exhaustion weighed heavy on my limbs. Now that we've taken the throne, let's bring our mate back. Drive AKO urged impatiently in my head. One thing at a time. Drive AKO. One thing at a time, I reassured him. Then, everything went black, and I collapsed. The celebration, the night of the skirmishes, was filled with festivities. Alphas and their companions celebrated with abundant food, drink, and music. The ballroom was alive with energy. Laughter echoed off the walls, and beautiful women mingled among the victorious. Despite the revelry, I felt strangely detached. My warriors, Demetrios included, were having the time of their lives, each with a woman at their side. I, however, sat alone, nursing a drink. It is the king's duty to remain faithful to his queen. Draco's voice rumbled sternly in my head, as though sensing the temptation in the air. I don't plan to cheat on Adelina, but is it so wrong to enjoy someone's company for the night? Nothing would happen, I reasoned. Don't make me repeat myself. Drive AKO growled. If Adelina finds out, We're doomed. I won't let you risk what little chance we have with some meaningless distraction. Fine. You win. Drive AKO. Sometimes you're worse than a nagging elder. I muttered internally, finishing my drink. The hours dragged on as I watched others indulge in the festivities, laughing and dancing while I remained a solitary observer. By the time the celebration began to wind down, it was nearly 3 in the morning. Most of the guests had retired, leaving the ballroom quiet and nearly empty. That's when Ivan, the Russian alpha, approached me with his trademark mischievous grin. What are you doing here all alone? Maximus, raising a brow, heading to my bedroom, I replied, my voice heavy with exhaustion. To our agent extraordinaire, Madeleine, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. He laughed. What happened to the Maximus I used to know? The one who always stayed out the latest, drinking and laughing until the sun came up. I found my mate. I can't keep fooling around. Ivan scoffed. Nonsense. Back home, we say, once a naughty, always a naughty. His words drew a reluctant laugh from me. You know me too well. My friend, I admitted with a small smile. We stood there, sharing a moment of camaraderie, before I finally gathered the courage to ask him something that had been gnawing me. Ivan, why didn't you fight Nicholas? You could have been king, you know. Ivan gave a casual shrug, leaning back against the wall with his trademark grin. Man, sometimes it's wiser to give up a battle than to fight for something you know is already lost. Your wolf was a force of nature today. Maximus, it'd be a fool not to recognize his superiority. I saw how badly Drive AKO wanted the throne. Being king doesn't suit me. I'm more a man of pleasures than responsibilities. I couldn't help but chuckle. Then why did you even come here in the first place? I came for the experience, he said with a twinkle of amusement in his eyes. And, of course, to see my best friend win the throne. What else? I rolled my eyes. You're unbelievable. How could you be so sure I'd beat Nicholas? Ivan's expression darkened slightly. Nicholas is nothing compared to you, Max. And, to be honest, I suspect he used less than honorable methods to try and win. I stiffened, my eyes scanning the room instinctively. Wolves were still lingering nearby, chatting and drinking. I was sure who I could trust yet, and this was a topic I wanted to discuss openly. This isn't the time or the place to talk about that, I said sharply, cutting him off. Ivan nodded in understanding, though his jaw tightened. Whenever you meet me, don't hesitate to call. They'll support you on no matter what. I placed a hand on his shoulder. Thanks. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's good to know I have true friends around me. Ivan's grin returned, his mood lightening. I've known you for years, Max. I know what you're capable of. You're the right man for the throne, and I'm certain you'll accomplish everything you set your sights on. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I just hope I don't disappoint you. You won't. He waved off my concerns. You're going to be the best king we've ever had. Now, enough serious talk. Tell me, when did you find your mate? How did that happen? The mention of Adelina caught me off guard. I hesitated for a moment before answering. I found her during my last tour of the packs. Ivan leaned in closer, curiosity gleaming in his eyes. Who is she? Don't leave me hanging, spill the details. She's the daughter of an alpha. I admitted that when I first met her, I thought she was one of the Ungazer. Ivan's eyes widened, and then he burst into laughter. Seriously? Oh man, please tell me you didn't treat her like shit. I groaned, already regretting bringing this up. Sorry to disappoint you, but your hopes are misplaced. He grinned mischievously. What did you do to this poor girl? Beast. Rubbing the back of my neck. I'll tell you everything. And so, I began recounting the story of how I met Adelina, and from the initial misundings to the mistakes it made along the way. Ivan's reactions were dramatic, ranging from mock horror to exaggerated laughter, which only fueled Draco's growing irritation. Aegeus mocking our mate. I won't stand for it. Drive AKO growled in my mind, his tone brimming with anger. Relax. Drive AKO. It doesn't mean any harm. I reassured him, though his growls continued as I spoke. The time passed quickly, our conversation alternating between teasing banter and heartfelt moments. Eventually, we both agreed to call it a night. As I made my way back to my room, Draco's voice echoed in my head, his tone stern and relentless. I told you your old ways would come back to bite us. If you'd treated her better from the start, she wouldn't have walked away. My exhaustion starting to catch up with me. You're like a broken record. Drive AKO. Can we save this lecture for another time? No, we can't. You're the king now. You idiot. You need to act like it. The first thing you must do is win back our mate, and do it as soon as possible. Drive AKO. If I want to have the strength to win her back tomorrow, you need to let me get some sleep. I'm exhausted. There was a long pause before he finally relented. But don't waste time. We make things right with Adelina. Yeah. Good night. Drive AKO. Good night. I rolled my eyes at his grumbled response and collapsed onto the bed, falling into a dreamless sleep almost instantly. Chapter 49a. All in vain. Axa must be over. The day of my coronation as king of all wolves has finally arrived, and a strange anxiety churns within me. It's not that I didn't expect to win the skirmishes. I knew I was prepared, that I was capable of achieving this. But the truth is, none of it feels real. Nothing feels significant. Without Adelina, my life feels like a hollow victory. It's as though a shadow looms over everything, dimming the celebration. I thought it'd be filled with pride, with joy at the prospect of leading our kind. All I feel is this gnawing emptiness. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The festivities, the crown, they all feel weightless without her by my side. I can't shake the thought that she should be here with me, standing proudly, the queen by her king's side. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She's an alpha. By tradition, she must be here, it's expected. A symbol of approval, of loyalty. But she hasn't come. A month has passed since I last spoke to her. She's been swallowed up by her responsibilities as alpha, a role she's grown into with remarkable ease. From what I've heard, she's done an extraordinary job. In just a short time, she transformed her old pack, implementing structural changes that increased efficiency and profitability. Her tactical mind and keen leadership have earned her the respect of other alphas, many of whom refer to her as the calm power of force that gets things done with quiet, unassuming authority. Every morning, I send her flowers, the ones I know she loves. Beautiful roses in varying shades, chocolates, pieces of jewelry, or handwritten cards with verses of love. I thought maybe, if I showed her how much I care, she might return to me. But every time I reach out, whether by phone or text, there's nothing. No response. Just always too busy or unreachable. And the silence between us stretches like a growing chasm I can't seem to cross. The worst of it came during the Alphas meeting 2 weeks ago at the Silverwoods Pack. It was the first time I had seen her in person since the skirmishes, and even though the room was full of leaders, my eyes kept drifting toward her. She was a vision, poised, composed, and radiant in a way that only she could be. She spoke with such authority, her words cutting straight to the heart of every issue. Her proposals were sharp and fair, and you could feel the respect in the room for her. There was no question in my mind she would be an excellent queen, but the more I watched her, the more I felt the distance. She was surrounded by people. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But it wasn't just that. She actively avoided me, Or at least, it seemed that way. I couldn't help but feel a pang of rejection as I caught her looking away every time our eyes met. Deeper than I wanted to admit. She was the same Adelina I once knew. This woman had become someone untouchable. My heart ached with a longing I couldn't express. I wanted her. I wanted her by my side. Not just in my dreams but in the waking world. I wanted to touch her. To hold her. To feel her warmth next to me again. Her beauty consumed my thoughts. Especially in the quiet moments when I allowed my mind to wander. The thought of her body, soft and warm, stirred something deep within me, an undeniable hunger that was all-consuming. The curve of her neck, the delicate arch at her back, the feel of her skin beneath my fingertips. My breath quickened, but before I could lose myself to the thoughts, the door to my chambers opened with a sudden crash. Chris stepped inside, breaking the spell that had fallen over me. Maximus, his voice cutting through the haze in my mind. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I blinked, trying to shake off the remnants of my longing thoughts. I forced myself to focus on the reality around me, the crown, the responsibilities, the throne, but all I could feel was the absence of the one person who mattered. Right, I muttered, wiping my hands down my face as I steadied myself. Let's get this over with. Chris raised an eyebrow. You sure you're ready for this? I nodded, but it wasn't with conviction. I'll do what I must. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Though the words felt empty, I was sure if I was ready for the title, the throne, or any of it without her beside me. Good. Let's make it official. Then, Chris replied, his voice firm, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something crucial was missing from this picture. Adelina, where are you? Third person POV. The ceremony took place in a hall fit for royalty, a place where power and tradition seemed to bleed into every inch of the walls. The grandeur of the royal palace's ballroom was unmatched, and it exuded an air of majesty that seemed to be woven into the very fabric of the kingdom itself. The throne room had been transformed into a space that practically pulsed with life and anticipation. Draped in red and gold, the official colors of our kingdom, creating a lavish contrast against the marble floors. Rich, deep crimson carpets were meticulously laid across the floor, guiding every guest toward the imposing golden throne that stood in the center of the room. The throne itself was a work of art intricately carved with ornate details, gilded in gold, and flanked by the proud coats of arms of the Draco Pact. Every corner of the room was festooned with the finest decorations, vases filled with blood, red roses, and Alexandrian flowers, their delicate petals adding an ethereal charm to the space. On the left-hand side, a buffet laden with every conceivable delicacy, exquisite sweets, savory hors d'oeuvres, and an array of intoxicating drinks tempted the guests as they mingled. The high-ranking wolves began to file into the room, their elegant tuxedos and evening dresses creating a sea of shimmering fabrics and sharp cuts. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Betas and lunars gathered in small clusters, exchanging words and business. Their voices a quiet hum that blended into the atmosphere. A mega wolf darted between groups, their movements a blur as they served drinks and catered to the needs of the guests. From somewhere deeper in the hall, the soft strains of classical music floated through the air, the orchestra played in perfect harmony with the mood of the occasion. There was an air of excitement, of unity, as everyone waited for what was to come. When the room was at its peak, the sound of trumpets suddenly pierced the air. Silence fell like a blanket, as the council members, dressed in robes of fine velvet and brocade, entered one by one, each stepping into the spotlight with an air of quiet authority. Following them, the former king and queen made their entrance, their regal posture a testament to years of leadership. The high priest of Artemis, our goddess, our guide, walked solemnly in front of them, his robes trailing behind him. signaling the sacredness of the moment. And it was his turn. Maximus, the new king. The moment the doors opened, all eyes turned. He entered the room with a slow, deliberate grace, his presence alone commanding the room. He wore the traditional royal uniform, his white jacket adorned with gleaming metals, reflecting the soft light of the chandeliers above. His pants were tailored perfectly, with a single white stripe running down the sides, a symbol of purity and rank. A golden dagger rested on his belt, the handle decorated with 3 small emeralds that glinted in the light. As he stepped into the room, the air seemed to shift. It was not just his appearance, it was the sheer weight of his power that filled the space, an almost tangible force that made everyone unconsciously bow in reverence. The room held its collective breath, recognizing that the one who now stood before them was a leader not only by title but by the very essence of his being. His aura was a force unto itself, rich with dominance, wisdom, and something darker, something primal. The council members, seated to the right of the throne, stood as one, acknowledging the presence of their new king. The former king and queen settled into their elevated seats, a show of respect for the position. Though their own time had passed, the high priest moved to stand before the throne, his hands clasped, waiting for Maximus to approach. With a steady, unwavering pace, Maximus walked toward the throne. Each step was calculated, measured, as if he were walking into the very heart of his destiny. The high priest began to chant softly, the ancient words asking for the blessing of Artemis, a prayer to guide the new king on his path. The room fell into an almost reverent silence, the weight of the moment settling over everyone present. When Maximus reached the throne, he stopped just a few feet away. The high priest extended a ceremonial knife to him, its blade gleaming in the soft light. Beside him, a golden cup was held out. With calm precision, Maximus cut his hand, his blood dripping down in 3 deliberate drops. The room was still, all eyes on him as he spoke the sacred words of the oath, his voice steady, yet laced with the gravity of the moment. I, Maximilian Augustus, drive AKO, he began, his words ringing clear through the silence. Swear under blood oath to serve my kind as best I can, to protect the kingdom and its subjects from any potential threat with my own life, and to ensure peace and prosperity among us. His voice was a vow, a promise that settled deep into the hearts of all who heard it. The weight of the words hung in the air, powerful and unyielding. His oath had been taken, there was no turning back. The kingdom had a new king. The high priest, with a solemn yet steady hand, placed the crown upon Maximus's head. The golden circlet gleamed as it settled, signifying not only the physical weight of the crown but the immense responsibility that now rested upon his shoulders. The room seemed to hold its breath, the moment stretching longer than time itself. I present to you, your rightful king, the high priest declared, his voice carrying with reverence through the hall. A thunderous cheer erupted from the crowd. The applause was deafening, a unified sound of adoration and respect that filled every corner of the room. Hail the new king. May the goddess bless him and protect him. Maximus, 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 they chanted in unison, their voices rising in a collective roar that echoed through the grand halls of the royal palace. Maximus stood tall, his gaze sweeping over the sea of faces below him, some familiar, others new, but all now under his reign. The weight of their gaze settled on him like the crown on his head, but he stood unflinching. He was king now, and he would wear that title with the strength that had led him here. Raising his hand, his fingers glimmering with gold rings, Maximus called for silence. The room obeyed immediately, the noise of the crowd falling to a hushed murmur. It was a stark contrast to the deafening applause that had just reverberated through the air. Calm yet commanding, filled the silence as he began to speak. Members of council, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Lunars and betas, ladies and gentlemen, he began, pausing for a moment, as if gathering the weight of his words. His eyes moved over the crowd, every face a reminder of the kingdom he now led. As many of you may know, I am not a man of great speeches. I am not one for endless words, nor do I wish to bore you with promises. He chuckled softly, a fleeting moment of warmth before his expression hardened with conviction. I am a man of deeds. His gaze sharpened as he continued, his voice gaining strength with each word. And I promise you this under my reign. Our kingdom will grow stronger. We will prosper together, as a united people, forging a future that is worthy of the sacrifices that have brought us here. But above all, there is one thing I want to prevail above all else during my rule: peace. Peace for all wolves, peace among the packs, and peace for our future. The weight of his words hung in the air, resonating deeply within the hearts of all who listened. His oath was not just a promise, it was a commitment to the kingdom and its people. His leadership would be defined not by the wars fought or the enemies defeated, but by the tranquility he would cultivate, the unity he would create. Maximus's eyes lingered for a moment longer, scanning the room. His gaze briefly flickered to the empty seat beside the throne, the seat reserved for his queen. A kind of longing surged within him, but he quickly suppressed it. There was work to do, a kingdom to unite, and a future to build. Audilina would return to him in time, but for now, the kingdom was his responsibility. The people needed a king they could trust, a king who would honor his promises, not with mere words, but with actions that would speak louder than any speech ever could. I am not perfect, his voice softening just slightly, but I will always strive to be the king this kingdom deserves. I ask for your trust, your loyalty, and your strength as we move forward. With that, he lowered his hand, and the crowd erupted again into applause, their cheers now laced with genuine hope and admiration. Maximus stood tall, his heart pounding in his chest, the weight of leadership settling upon him in a way that felt both daunting and empowering. Chapter 49b, All in Vain. Maximus POV. The moment the crown was placed upon my head, I felt a strange emptiness settle over me. As the crown gleamed in the light, symbolizing the peak of my power, I couldn't ignore the deep loneliness gnawing at my chest. It should have been a moment of triumph, but it felt hollow. The weight of leadership was nothing compared to the weight of the absence that tugged at me, the absence of her. I scanned the grand hall for her, my eyes desperately searching the sea of faces. But she was nowhere to be seen. It was as if her presence was the only thing that could make this moment complete. And yet, I was standing here alone. The reception that followed the coronation felt like a blur. Alphas and Lunas approached me with congratulations and pleasantries. The conversations I shared with council members about the fate of the new order members felt trivial, even though they held immense importance. My mind washed with them. It was with her. I couldn't stop thinking about her, Audilina. And then, like a dream or a vision, I felt a shiver run through my spine. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I turned instinctively. My heart skipped a beat as my eyes locked with hers. There she was, Audilina, an apparition in the crowd. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Radiant, she wore a long green dress that seemed to flow around her like liquid silk, accentuating the elegant curve of her body. Her dark hair was styled in an ancient Greek bun, the strands held together by intricate gold pins. Her earrings, large and bold in their Greek design, shimmered in the soft light of the hall. She stood there, still and silent, her gaze piercing for the distance between us, as though she had been waiting for this moment as much as I had. My pulse quickened, and without a second thought, I moved toward her, taking large, purposeful steps. Every other conversation faded away, every other face blurred into the background. It was just her. It had always been her. When I was inches away, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her presence, a soft smile tugged at my lips, and I couldn't contain it. She smiled back faint. But there, our eyes held each other's for a long moment, saying everything we both felt without a single word. Finally, I broke the silence. You came to my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice filled with relief and a growing sense of hope. The weight of the crown was still there, but it didn't matter anymore. I took her hand in mine and placed it gently over my heart, leaning in to press a soft kiss to her hand. Her skin felt like silk against my lips, and for a moment, I forgot about everything else. Yes, she whispered, her voice low, almost hesitant. She tried to pull her hand back, but I didn't let go. I cowered. Would it be better if we went outside? I suggested, my voice quieter now, the need for privacy more pressing than ever. We'll have more space there. Just us. She didn't speak at first, but her eyes softened, and she nodded once. Slowly. That was all I needed. Without another word, I led her toward the balcony, my heart racing in anticipation. The night air hit us as we stepped outside, the cool breeze carrying the sweet fragrance of evening flowers that seemed to have taken over the palace grounds. She let go of my hand once we were on the balcony, taking a deep, steadying breath, her eyes lifting to the sky above us. We stood there, side by side, silent for a few moments, simply existing in the calm, the scent of the flowers, the stillness that enveloped us. It felt like the world had paused, as if time itself was waiting for what came next. She spoke, her voice soft but inquisitive. "How are you?" The question caught me off guard, though I knew she had every right to ask. I'd been a king, a leader, a force of nature in the eyes of many, but, in that moment, I felt small. I didn't care about titles. Not anymore. I replied honestly, my voice thick with emotion. The weight of everything, the crown, the responsibilities, the expectations, all it felt meaningless without her by my side. Her eyes narrowed, a frown creasing her brow. That's surprising. I've never believed that I would hear something like this from your lips. Her words stung more than I expected. She sounded skeptical, as though she didn't fully understand why I could feel this way. How could she? She didn't know the depths of what had been hiding, what had been feeling all this time. I don't care about being a king, I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. Bond vulnerable. I don't care about anything, since you left. I watched her closely, her face shifting from disbelief to something else. She stood there, quiet, perhaps unsure how to process what I had just said. But I needed to say it all. All the things I kept locked away for too long, buried beneath layers of pride and duty. I took a deep breath, my gaze unwavering from hers. Adelina, the truth is, I've ever been more lost. Everything I've worked for, all the power I have now, it doesn't mean anything without you. I don't need to be king. I don't need anything. Not if you're not here beside me. I'm nothing without you. I said it all. My heart lay bare, the words spilling out like a flood that could no longer be contained. I was the king right now. I was just a man, desperate for the woman I loved. I could only hope she would understand. Hope that my vulnerability wouldn't drive her further away. Why didn't you reply to any of my calls? Why are you avoiding me? You said I had the same chances as the others. But in reality, you never gave me one. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice stinged with frustration and hurt. Her eyes shifted, avoiding mine, as if she were looking for an escape. It's not that I'm avoiding you on purpose. It's just that I have a lot of work to do. She tried to explain, her voice tight. I was convinced. You know you're no good with lies. I replied, my tone more pointed than I intended. She straightened, her irritation clear. I'm not lying, she snapped, her eyes flashing. Taking a step closer. Adelina, I'm not here to accuse you of anything, I said softly, my voice losing the edge. I'm here because I want to open my heart to you. I'm a difficult person. I know that. I've made many mistakes. I'm not good with words. But I have one thing going for me: I never lie. What I'm telling you now, what I've been carrying in my heart all this time, it's the truth. The only truth. She looked at me then, her expression unreadable, but I could see the faint flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. I reached for her hand, holding it gently between us. Adelina, I can't live without you anymore. Your absence, it's unbearable. I don't care if I lose everything: my position, my pack, my privileges. I'll give it all up if it means I can have you by my side. Her breath caught, and she seemed to struggle with the weight of my words. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but nothing came out. Max, she began, but I cowed and let her finish. Shite, I whispered, pressing a finger to her lips gently, silencing her. With the same hand, I caressed her cheek, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath my fingers. My other hand found its way to her waist, pulling her just a little closer. The moment my touch made contact, sparks of electricity shot through me, and I felt her body tremble slightly against mine. She didn't pull away. Her hands slowly found their way around my shoulders, her fingers gently clasping the back of my neck. The connection was undeniable, the bond between us still fed with energy, but this time it was different. It was deeper, more profound. I leaned my forehead against hers, my heart hammering in my chest. This was what I'd been waiting for, what I'd been longing for. But just as I was about to close the distance between us and kiss her, she pulled away. My heart sank at the loss of contact, but I didn't reach for her again. I couldn't. She needed space. She sighed heavily, composing herself quickly as she took a few steps back. Her gaze was distant. Then why didn't you look for me when I got kidnapped? Why did you leave me alone? Her voice was plaintive now, raw with emotion. Why didn't you care about me? Her words hit me like a cold wave, and for a moment, I was speechless. Who told you that? My voice hoarse, almost desperate. I never left you. I looked everywhere for you. Her eyes filled with something that looked like sadness, but also, to my ancient extraordinaire, meaningless, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. No, she said firmly. You stopped after a week. I swallowed hard. She was right, yes. This is true. I admit it. My voice barely a whisper. Shame washed over me, and I could feel the weight of my failure pressing on me, suffocating me. I shouldn't have stopped looking for you. I know that, but, Adelina, you don't know the whole story. You don't know the reason I had to stop. She stood there, unmoving, waiting. Her expression was a mixture of frustration and curiosity, but there was also pain there. She wanted to know, and for the first time in a long time, I realized I owed her the truth. I had to explain everything I'd kept hidden for too long. I took a deep breath, gathering the courage to speak. The words felt heavy on my tongue, but I knew I couldn't keep them buried any longer. I stopped looking because I had to choose. Adelina, my duty as alpha and the responsibility of leading my people weighed on me. I couldn't risk leaving my pack without a leader for too long, not after everything we've been through. But the truth is, it broke me. Every day I spent without you, it tore me apart inside. My eyes never leaving hers. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. I made a mistake, and I've lived with that regret every single day since. I can't fix the past, but I can promise you this: I won't ever leave you again. Whatever the reason, I don't care. Adelina said, her voice sharp with anger. All I know is that you abandoned me during my most difficult time. You never came to rescue me. If it weren't for Nicholas, I would be dead now. My voice was filled with irritation. I couldn't help the wave of jealousy that rushed over me. Him again? Yes. Nicholas, she responded bitterly. Unlike you, he never stopped looking for me. He kept searching, every single day, until he finally found me and saved me. I bowed my head in shame, unable to find words to defend myself. She was right. I had nothing left to say. Do I have at least one small chance? I dared to ask, my heart in my throat. A chance for what? Her gaze cold and unwavering as she locked eyes with me. The anger was palpable in her voice, and I felt every ounce of it. I could see she was still hurt by my past behavior, but I was going to give up. A chance to show you how much I care for you. To my agent extraordinaire, meaningless, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice trembling with vulnerability. A chance for us to be together again. I know you expected a lot from me. And once again, I let you down. I trailed off, hoping she'd hear the sincerity in my voice. No, Maximus. She cut me off, her tone even harsher now. I didn't expect a lot. I expected for once in your life for you to be a real mate to me. But instead, I got the usual indifference from you. And for that, I can't forgive you or give you another chance. You obviously don't deserve it. Her words stung, each one a sharp reminder of my failures. That my love, I whispered, reaching out. Desperate. Stop calling me that. She spat, her voice venomous. I am not your love. I never was, and I never will be. Her fury was unmistakable, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Don't say that. I love you, Adelina. I want to be with you. Please, don't give up on us. My heart breaking with every word. There is no us. Maximus. Shaking her head, her voice cold and final. There never was, and that is the result of your decisions. So stop pleading, stop sending flowers and gifts, and accept reality once and for all. But, my love Adelina, there you are. Nicholas' voice cut through the tension, and before I could react, he appeared behind her, his presence like a shadow over the moment. Oh, Drive-Akeo, you're here too. I should have known you'd be behind her disappearance. By the way, congratulations on your new position. You deserved it after all. His voice dripping with sarcasm. Thank you, Nicholas. I responded, my voice clipped with barely contained anger. Now, if you don't mind, I would appreciate it if you'd leave us alone. We were in the middle of a serious conversation. I'm sorry. Drive-Akeo. But I can't do that, he replied with a smug grin. To my agent extraordinaire, meaningless, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My temper flaring. You dare question your king. My king, he laughed bitterly. How can I leave my girl alone with a man like you? Your girl. The words burned in my chest. How dare you? Adelina is my mate. My anger flared, and before I could think, I stormed towards him, grabbing him by the tie, my eyes flashing black as Drive-Akeo began to make his presence known. Nicholas struggled, trying to break free, but the tension between us escalated, almost to the point of violence. It worsened until Adelinas, her voice's sharp command, that I released him. Enough, she shouted, her voice like a whip cracked through the air. We stood there, inches apart, glaring at each other like two bulls preparing to clash. Her eyes were wild with anger, but there was something else there too. To my agent extraordinaire, meaningless, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Regret, I cowed and tell. Adelina grabbed Nicholas' arm and pulled him away, casting me one final glance. I was stunned, unable to move as I watched her walk away. Adelina, what are you doing? I managed to stammer, the weight of her departure crashing over me. Worrying, Maximus. Her voice stiff and filled with an emotion I couldn't decipher. But you owe me an explanation, I protested, desperate for anything that could make sense of this chaos. I don't owe you anything, she said firmly, turning her back on me. With a final glance at Nicholas, she walked off, not sparing me a second glance. I stood there in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. As I watched her disappear into the shadows of the garden, My heart felt like it was being torn in two. Bring back my mate now. Drive AKO growled in my mind, his voice furious and full of anguish. Audalina SPOV, we left the palace grounds, making our way to the parking lot, but my anger was still bubbling under the surface. What had just happened back there? Maximus. HD pushed me to the edge. And then Nicholas. His intervention had only made things worse. Why did everything have to get so complicated? Why did you lie to him? I asked Nicholas, my voice tight with frustration. It was the first thing that came to mind when I saw how bad things were. He apologized, his voice laced with regret. I'm sorry if I caused you trouble. It's not that. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Shaking my head. I hate lies. I said it so that you could leave. Nicholas explained, his voice soft. I know how persistent Maximus can be. That's still a lie, and I won't let it continue. I replied firmly. Why not? This lie is the only way for Maximus to leave you alone once and for all. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. His voice full of certainty. I didn't ask for your opinion, or your intervention. I snapped, my frustration spilling over. A cheat crossed a line, and I was about to let it slide. I'm really sorry. Adelina, I just wanted to help you get rid of him. I didn't ask for your help either, I said firmly, turning away from him as my frustration continued to build. Why do you react like this? Nicholas pressed, his voice a little softer now. Because I don't want people meddling in my life, I said through gritted teeth, trying to calm myself. Is that really the reason? Or is there something else? His tone curious, but also knowing, such as, I shot back, not wanting to entertain any more of his probing questions, such as, that you still love him, that you want to go back to him. My heart skipping a beat. If I wanted to go back to him, nothing could stop me. Believe me, I said with confidence. But there was an undercurrent of something deeper in my voice. I'm glad to hear it. Reaching for my hand, I quickly pulled my hand away, a shiver running down my spine. I should go, I said quickly, trying to shake off the strange feeling creeping up on me. I have a long trip ahead. I thought we could spend some time together. A hint of disappointment in his voice. I'm sorry. I can't. I have too much to do back home. Good night. Nicholas. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Slipping into the Jeep and starting the engine, I fastened my seatbelt, my mind racing with thoughts that didn't want to quiet. Nicholas stood there, staring after me, his gaze unsettling in a way I cowed in quiet place. I drove off, but for the first time, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with him. Something about his behavior didn't sit right. But I couldn't put my finger on it.